The 7 Years' War in America, though victorious, resulted in 9 years of harsh battle and economic downturn. Before the war, a plan known as the Albany Plan of Union, introduced by Benjamin Franklin, was to unite the colonies. This plan would unfold years after the war as the loyal British citizens became American revolutionaries. What began as a war united between a mother country and its colonies ended in a series of trials that defined the identity of the American colonies.
Nationalism influenced the alteration between Britain and the colonies socially. The colonists fought for the mother country and took pride in that. However, during the war, many colonists began to see the contrast between themselves and the British. Reverend Thomas Barnard, overcome with nationalism, praises Britain for its success in the war, although defers the colonies and mother country, praising the ones by none more zealously than by those of New England as well in his sermon. After the war, the British gained a substantial amount of land from the French, although settlement past the Appalachian Mountains was prohibited by the Proclamation of 1763. This proclamation fueled anger against the British, which led to a brutal massacre of American Indians by a group known as the Paxton Boys. The colonists' identity began to form after the war as they began to see themselves as a part from Britain.
The French-Indian War resulted in much debt. This debt created economic problems that continued to alter and separate the British and colonists. Britain began to impose harsh taxation because of the war debt to raise revenue. Acts such as the Sugar Act were put into place to collect more revenue.
Currency Act, Quartering Act, Stamp Act, Declaratory Act began to harshly pressure the colonists. The Stamp Act Congress was soon called to order to discuss the harsh Stamp Act. Patrick Henry led an opposition to the Stamp Act out of outrage. From this, rebellion began to stir amongst them. The British massacre resulted in 5 deaths from a harassment of a British soldier by colonists. The colonists began to identify themselves apart from Britain. Their role of government began to take shape as they stood politically with purpose. Resistance against Britain began to set in. The committees of correspondence began as shadowed governments started by patriotic leaders of colonies. The Tea Act imposed to tax tea and lessen trade of it, eventually to lead to the Boston Tea Party, led by the Sons of Anarchy, which the British reacted with intolerable acts. Reacting from the intolerable acts, the First Continental Congress, the colonies went from resistance to revolutionaries. The Lexington and Concord battles began the American Revolution as the first major battles. During the Revolution, leaders were made, such as Samuel Adams, second cousin of John Adams, second president of the United States. The Second Continental Congress was soon called, which became the unofficial government throughout the war. A year after the Second Continental Congress, the Declaration of Independence was signed, declaring independence from Britain in the same year. In the same year, Thomas wrote a common sense pamphlet spreading the idea of republicanism.
From the French and Indian War, the colonies triumphed from one Britain to one of their own. The colonists contrasted themselves from Britain, yet had pride in their nation. They emerged with identity after hard British measures. Politically, the American colonies formed into a union of resistance against Britain, and their role of government was made clear. The French and Indian War altered relations between Britain and its American colonies drastically, beginning as loyal British citizens to American revolutionaries.